Retro.
Hey, this is Lauren Mary Kim, and I'm the stunt double for Ahsoka Tano in Clone Wars and the armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Hello there, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
Happy Monday, y'all. We're going to start this week off with a look at some recent Star Wars news. And to pull back the curtain, we actually have recorded this episode about a week ago. So this all might be a bit stale, and there may be other things that have broken since then, but we're just going to get to what we had at the time. But before we get into that, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Of course, Dennis. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, this is a line. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So, Jay, we're less than a month from The Mandalorian and Grogu being in theaters. Can you believe that?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I know. I was thinking about that the other day, especially as we're going to talk about this final trailer coming here. But wow, yeah, it's kind of a pinch me moment that we're finally getting Star Wars back in the theater. Yay!
Yeah, it doesn't seem quite real to me, and I think one of the reasons why is like there's just not as much hype leading up to this movie. There doesn't seem to be the same number of product tie-ins. There's not like, Alan was telling us on Alan Boybot, that is, on the Force Awakens discussion we had, the Force Friday events. He brought those up, that were happening prior to the Force Awakens stuff. We aren't having anything like that. I mean, we haven't made the 4th between now and then, which is going to have some merchandise, but it just doesn't seem to be the usual buildup that we get for a Star Wars movie, I think.
Yeah. And I know I was thinking to myself too, even with Solo, even Denny's had stuff like giveaways for fun things, and you had different restaurants and whatnot that were doing things. I will say some of the merch that's out there is super cool. There's I know it's not an AT-AT, but it's the one that's like it from the movie. There's a popcorn bucket at Cinemark. I'm probably not going to be able to get my hands on any of it because they never seem to have any of that kind of stuff around here. But that being said, I would love to. So we'll see. But yeah, to your point, there's a lot more, I think, surrounding all the other films than this one, which is bizarre.
Yeah. And I have no idea who's got product tie-ins or anything like that. I mean, McDonald's right now is doing K-pop Demon Hunter, so it's not them. I don't, which is, K-pop Demon Hunter just had its thing last year, so it's weird that they're having a tie-in now, but be that as it may, advanced tickets are now on sale. Have you purchased any tickets yet for any showings?
No, I have not, but I was just telling my one teacher friend she is obsessed with Grogu, that we definitely need to go watch it together. But her daughter's getting married the weekend before, so she's got a little bit on her plate right now. So I think I'm not going to have any trouble getting tickets. I know that for sure around here, but yeah, so I'm just going to be waiting it out for a little bit. Plus May is also very jam-packed for us family-wise, so we'll just have to see. I'm hoping I get to see it opening weekend, but Dennis, I may not get to, so we're going to find out. But what about you?
No, I don't have tickets, and frankly, I'm not too worried about that right now. I've found that there's rarely a movie that comes out these days that I can't find decent tickets at a theater I want to go to at this point. And that is square in the middle of 2 different graduations. DJ's college graduation and Alex high school graduation are like 4 or 5 days before and after that. And so it's like a great window for me to go see it, but I'm just not even sure who's going to be around at the time. So anyway, definitely have to figure that out. But I suspect
Ohio?
I don't know. I can get more traveling right now. I also got to get, but But at any rate, I mean, I'm certain I'm going to see it the day it comes out, and then I'll probably see it at least one more time over the course of that weekend, and then I'll sneak out and see it because it comes out Memorial Day weekend. So there's
Right.
going to be time for me to go see it. It's just a matter of how many times. And then my brother and my niece are talking about coming down to see us with us as well. So you saw The Force Awakens how many times in the theaters?
11.
Yeah. My record for a Star Wars movie was The Phantom Menace, and not including its most recent return to theaters or the 3D showing they had a few years ago. I saw that like 20 some odd times in theaters
Wow.
when it came out.
Whew.
Attack of the Clones, I probably saw a half dozen. Revenge of the Sith, probably a half dozen or so. And then The Force Awakens, the same, half dozen. But I mean, 3 times that first weekend. And then I saw it with my parents. I saw it with some of my in-laws, and I know I saw it at least one more time after that. But it's life is busy. It's just hard to go do all those showings. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
I think I shared with you real quick, and I know
Mhm.
I've said it on the show before, so if anybody remembers me saying this, I apologize, but the Attack of the Clones movie was the only one I've never seen in a theater. So I'm really hoping at some point that they're gonna re-release that one as a theatrical event so I can say that I saw it on the big screen.
maybe in 2032 for its 30th anniversary.
Whew.
So
Wow, that seems so far away. But we always say those kinds of things, and then it just seems like a blink of the eye and the nod of the head, and we're there.
yeah, I mean, if we didn't have the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, then I would say there would have been a shot for the 25th anniversary next year. But they're going to do A New Hope in theaters. Well, I think that's what currently scheduled for early May or April. I can't remember when. And then we've got Starfighter coming out at the end of May. So I don't think they're going to give you a chance to see it next year in the theaters. But my guess would be 2032 is the next opportunity you're going to have to possibly see it in a wide release in theaters.
Mark your calendars now, people.
Just a guess. Don't come at me if I'm wrong on that one. So anyway, so moving on, the score is going to be available on May 15th across all digital platforms. I am assuming that there are not going to be any titles like Qui-Gon's Noble End. Otherwise, they might not have
Right.
released it that early. But the
Yeah.
fact is that that score is coming out that early. I'm assuming it's a bit more clean by comparison. Are you going to be listening to it in advance, or are you going to wait till you see the movie?
That's a good question. I don't think it's necessarily spoilery to listen to it, like you said, and I think that's so funny that we always reference that Qui-Gon's Noble End
Mhm.
on the Phantom Menace soundtrack. But yeah, that was a big oopsie. But I probably will end up waiting regardless. So that way it's all fresh.
Yeah, I have a feeling like Spotify is going to pull it up for me automatically, like if I'm listening to the DJ or something. So we'll see what happens on that. But yeah, at some point as we get close to that movie, because there's going to be the premiere and stuff like that. It's just like, how am I going to handle social media? Because we've all heard the stories of people who've had things ruined for them, and I'm just glad I'm not on X right now anymore, because that's like the hive of places that you can get spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
All the
Yeah, I
different
don't
things that
use
would
it
happen.
anymore
So
either. It's funny.
yeah, I just don't know how early I'm gonna kind of go blackout on that before I get to see the movie, so that I can avoid spoilers and the like. But you have a plan for that?
I probably will just avoid things until I get a chance to see it and just
Mm-hmm.
stay off social media pretty
Yeah.
much.
Okay. Well, in addition to all that, we do have the final trailer. So you've had an opportunity to watch this one?
I did. Yeah, I watched it a few times
Yeah.
actually.
So it contains a lot of things we've seen before, or images similar to things we've seen before. We get to see Grogu meditating, which we've seen, and then you kind of hear from Colonel Ward, which is Sigourney Weaver's character, and her talking about stories of a Mandalorian warrior and a child, and then you get to see the Mando suiting up with 2 very large knives. And he gets the rest of his weapons ready to go, but he mentions that he only hunts Imperial war criminals. We get a better look at the droid soldiers that are running, and we now have a bit more of an answer on them, that they are, I guess, property of the Hutts, the Hutt twins that we got to see in the Book of Boba Fett, because they're in the background as they're running. We've got shots of Embo, which are similar to what we've seen before. We get a nice shot of a squadron of X-Wings and Y-Wings. But let's pause there for a second. Anything from those first moments of the trailer stand out to you?
Well, I think just as a whole, the trailer seems more cohesive than some of the other trailers that we've gotten. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of maybe it's just because we've seen all the other things leading up to this, but it just seems now that we have it just feels different in the way that it doesn't seem so disjointed like those other trailers did with just, oh, there's this and then there's this and then there's this. It kind of looks like it's giving us more of an overall aesthetic for the movie, which I think is amazing. One
Mm-hmm.
thing that we see right at the very beginning, though, is that we hear Yoda's theme as Grogu is meditating.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how I feel about that. I mean, we were just talking about the Ludwig Goransson doing the soundtrack, and I'm sure Grogu has his own theme. So why use Yoda's?
Because we're familiar with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the trailer, and it's just like when we saw the Force Awakens trailers for the first time, and they were using variations on the Force theme and the Star Wars theme that we were familiar with, and they didn't even show up in the movie. But the point is it's to raise that nostalgia and get you invested in the trailer and get you to the theater. I think that's
I
the
can
only
see
reason
that.
why. Yeah,
Yeah. Or
it's a
maybe no spoilers for the for the
yeah,
soundtrack.
possibly. Um, I just uh, taking a step ahead to make this point, but the next thing we see is we see this new Razor Crest taking off. I really love that Mando's got like all of his gear back. He's got a new
Mhm.
pulse rifle. I love seeing like he's arming himself with the big knives. He's checking all of his guns. He's got his Razor Crest. So the N1 starfighter that he got in the Book of Boba Fett and then used in season 3 of The Mandalorian was cool and all, but I always felt that he and Grogu should be in a ship like the Razor Crest because it's their mobile home for one thing, and it's the base of operations for them.
Mhm.
And I think the N1 just kind of has a limited utility in that regard.
Oh, I agree. It kind of hits the same way for me as when Anakin gave Ahsoka her lightsabers back in season 7 of the Clone Wars. It
Mm-hmm.
just feels like coming home, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Like Han and Chewie getting back on the Falcon. Chewie, we're home.
Yes.
So
There you go.
right. So I'm not going to hit all the rest of the moments from this trailer, but I'm going to hit some, kind of hit the big strokes here. But we see a similar thing with Mandalorian telling Grogu, if we're going into harm's way, make sure you check your armor first. We see a U-Wing land at a Delphi base. We've seen a U-Wing in a lot of trailers and teasers for this movie. So I guess that's going to play a big role. We get to see Colonel Ward in her X-Wing pilot gear. Typically, we see her sitting at the table talking to Din Djarin and Grogu as Grogu's trying to steal her food. And
Mhm.
then we've got Mando with Zeb walking. We get another
Yay.
moment with Zeb later in this. So it seems like he's got a fairly decent role in the movie. Number of shots of the Hutt in the arena. And then we get a great sequence of Din Djarin and Grogu on the AT-RT, the recon version of the Walker, charging through the snow and then blasting off with the jetpack right before the AT-AT crushes the AT-RT underfoot. So that was a fun
Yes.
sequence.
Very cool.
But here's the thing: is like, okay, this is all great. I don't want any more like social media teasers or trailers that show us anything more of this movie. I'm good. I mean, I've been good for a while. I didn't need to see this trailer. It's got me a little bit more pumped than I was before. But yeah, let's just get the movie now. But
Right.
what of all this? Oh, and Zellens, they're all over this trailer, especially with Grogu. I thought it was funny when he sees him and he like goes charging down there to give him a bear hug, and Mando tells him not to do that. But um, what else from the rest of this trailer stood out to you?
Oh, I love seeing Zeb. Oh my gosh, I love it so
Mhm.
much. And, to your point about what you were saying earlier about the hype, I think this is just I hate to say the easy way to give us some hype, but I think that's exactly what it is. But so I have a question. So if they're pronounced AT-ATs, is it an at-ert? At-ert?
Well, no, because it's not an at, it's for an ATST.
I'm just being silly.
No, I know, but since you put it to me, I was like, well, philosophy, what is the convention for that? No, I think the AT-AT just has a special place in Star Wars fans' hearts because it was the
Oh, for
first
sure.
thing like that we ever knew about. So,
But
right.
some other things for me too. Of course, the Anzellans are just the cutest things, and they're just so much fun. And seeing Embo, hello,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
cool. Just loving seeing all of these different types of animation characters coming to life on the big screen is just so satisfying.
Yeah. What stands out to me is that between this trailer and the last one, where you got that line from Din Djarin saying, "Is like we'll take out like all those Imperials in your deck of cards," or something to
Mhm,
that effect, and we see almost nothing with the Imperials in that
mhm.
regard, which gives me hope that there's a lot of this movie we just haven't seen yet.
Right, right.
Or even glimpsed yet. And of course, we haven't seen much of the movie yet. We've only been watching the trailers, but you get what I'm saying. The point
Oh,
is
yeah.
that there's a lot of Imperial stuff to come that has not been revealed in this movie. So I'm very eager to see more about that. This has been described as this a little bit of a coming age story, but master training an apprentice type of an adventure here. And so you can do that with the Hutts. You can do that, but the scenes with Sigourney Weaver are always talking to her about going after these Imperial warlords to prevent another war. So I assume that's got to be a fairly large portion of the movie. So we'll
Right.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, as you said, we're not getting the whole movie because sometimes that always irks me when you've basically seen the movie from the trailers and then there's not really a whole lot that's new. So I'm glad that they're keeping a lot of things under wraps. At least I'm assuming they are.
Right. Right. So in the story that does not die related to the Mandalorian, chapter or episode season 4 is not the same thing as this movie. But that being said, we still don't know if we're ever going to get a season 4 of The Mandalorian. But Jon Favreau was talking to SFX magazine, and the question came up with, you had written season 4. You'd stated that you had written season 4, but then we got this movie instead. What's the deal? Did the season 4 get turned into this? And not so much is what we've come to find out. He said that you can't just take those scripts and turn them into a movie. There were a lot of characters. It assumed you watched this whole show, and it was teeing up what was happening moving into Ahsoka. It was about Grand Admiral Thrawn and following the larger storyline. This is a completely different medium, so I had to start from scratch, essentially. There were certain things I wanted to pursue, like the idea of Grogu being Mandalorian's apprentice. And as long as you understand the archetypes of this hardened warrior with their valuable young apprentice, you'll know these characters well, even if you've never seen the show. But there's still a lot of Star Wars in there. You're going to see where things are going, but that doesn't diminish from the experience of watching it as a standalone film. So he concluded everything by saying, before the strike, which was in 2023, we were writing a 4th season, and then, like with the Dodgers, you get a tap on the shoulder in the bullpen. You want to pitch in the big game. We have been talking about doing something for the big screen with this for a long time. I thought it was going to probably be some mixing of different media, like something for streaming and then having a theatrical component. And then I finally got asked, would you be open to exploring these characters for the cinema? You have to completely switch hats then. So, interesting. My takeaway is, okay, so there may have been ideas for season 4 that made their way into this movie, but it's not the same story as what was going to be in the script. That what we were going to get from season 4 of The Mandalorian was going to involve Thrawn, and apparently I'm guessing he's now not in this movie, which I'm fine with there. And yeah, so those scripts are out there. They could do something with them, but it doesn't sound like there's currently any plans to do something with them.
Yeah, there's a few things that strike me in
Mm-hmm.
this particular interview. And I guess you could say that, well, maybe there could be another season and go back to streaming because it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like they have a blueprint of what obviously John Favreau wrote going
Mm-hmm.
into this, but then had to change things. But do you, I hate to say backslide into streaming once you've been on the big screen? But I guess that's gonna also depend upon how well received The Mandalorian and Grogu is in movies in the theater, sorry. Because, as we were talking about, the last season of The Mandalorian wasn't as well received as
Right.
the first couple of seasons. So this could be that testing ground to see if it's still gonna be viable for the small screen later on. But I would love to see those stories on screen at all. The whole Admiral Thrawn thing. I mean, can never get enough of him.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if we're getting season 2 of Ahsoka later this year or early next year. We're not entirely certain. And we know Thrawn's going to be involved in that. But is that going to, have they moved? Basically, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, have they moved beyond this idea of what season 4 was going to be about? Because there was supposed to be a culmination of what was happening in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and other shows that didn't even happen. That was going to be Dave Filoni's movie. And it was going to be kind of this, heir to the empire is what we've been calling it, which was supposed to be about them all banding together to take on Thrawn. But instead, we now got this movie, and we're getting a season 2 of Ahsoka that may be handling that. It's not to say that they still can't do it, but I kind of get the feeling that maybe Filoni's movie's not even necessarily a thing, since he's kind of busy running Lucasfilm. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, I think. And there's so much that I think is up in the air with that, but it does make sense that perhaps some of the ideas that could have been in Mando season 4 will show up in Ahsoka, and they sort of morph those ideas together. So I guess time will tell.
Yeah. Hard to say. We'll see. I mean, I'm very much open to getting more Mandalorian on Disney Plus, especially if they want to do it like they've been doing it, which is to give us one episode per week. As much as I'm enjoying Maul Shadow Lord, I wish they had stretched it out over 10 weeks as opposed to giving us 2 per week, just so we could keep that experience going. But
I agree.
Yeah. Well, that's what we got on The Mandalorian. We got a few other things we want to touch on before we go. Up first, Sam Witwer is up for reprising his role as Starkiller. So if you don't know what that is, Sam Witwer basically broke his teeth on Star Wars by playing the character Galen Merrick, which is also known as Starkiller, in the Force Unleashed games for the computer, for the PC. I don't know if they were actually available on consoles. I played them on PC. That's how I remember it. But again, it was this
Wii.
What's that?
We had it on the Wii.
Okay, yeah, it did come out. That's right. Yeah. I think that was after the fact, though. I think it was original. If it came out on consoles, it would have been on whatever the PlayStation or Xbox were at that time. Fun games. I really enjoyed them. But he said, I would shave my head in an instant and be very happy to do so. I love that character, and he's really the reason I'm here. And he's right. That's how he got his feet wet with Star Wars. That's why he got the job as the brother in the Mortis arc, which we just talked about recently. And then from there, he went on to voice Maul. Okay, so I was going to ask if you're familiar with the game at all, but you just said you had it on the Wii. What'd you think about all that?
About what Sam said? The game?
No,
the game itself was so great. And I think it was probably the first true role-playing type game that my boys ever played. And of course, Colby One was so into it. And I followed along and watched them right along with it. And there was definitely some compelling storyline to it. But obviously it was the precursor to the idea of the Inquisitors. So it's, I think if he would reprise the role, it would be a little bit sticky in that regard. It would have to be more of almost like a Visions project kind of thing, or a certain point of view kind of thing. But it would need to be very intentional if they planted Galen Merrick back into anything Star Wars, I think. And I don't know. I mean, because he's almost too overpowered for modern Star Wars. You know what I mean? Some of his abilities and obviously that was because it was a video game, and that was part of the fun, being able to do all the things that he did. But I don't know. It doesn't really fit into the current storytelling tone. As much as I would like to see him back, I think it would just, like I said, it just need to be very, very intentional.
Right. And I think you're actually right. I loved the game. I played it a ton, because you had the alternate endings, depending on what you ultimately decide you wanted to do at the end. And then they had the second game, which I actually never played. Don't know why, but I don't think it was quite as well received as the first one.
Yeah, it was good. My kids played both.
Yeah. But I think if you wanted to bring Starkiller into our current continuity, you would basically have to do what you did with Thrawn, which is just change the circumstances around the character. It wouldn't necessarily be Darth Vader's secret apprentice that he was hoping to one day use to overthrow Palpatine, because that ship has kind of sailed. But the armor for Starkiller showed up in Andor.
That is true.
In Luthen Rail's shop. I mean, it was an Easter egg in the background. So
I
that's not
forgot
to,
about that.
yeah, I mean, that's not to say that Starkiller is canon, but that armor was there as an Easter egg for us. But that's not to say that he couldn't be some sort of a Sith assassin akin to what Asajj Ventress was in some capacity.
Good point.
Make it a character that you could set during the sequel trilogy era if you wanted, based on that. There's ways to use the character and alter its history enough that you could still have it without having to tell the same story from Legends. But I don't know that it's really necessary. I think we've got plenty of characters that fill that purpose, that you'd really just be doing it for the aesthetic of the character more than anything.
No, I totally agree. And
Yeah.
Sam Witwer, I don't know if you've been able to catch some of the supplemental things and interviews that he's been doing, but they're just so good. Of
Yeah.
course, he's doing the whole gamut of things for All Shadow Lord right now. And so I was going down a rabbit hole the other night on Sam Witwer videos. And I have to tell you, one of the really cool things that he talked about is, do you know how he gets his voice ready for recording Maul?
I saw that video, but I'll let you go ahead and tell it. Yes.
He eats green apples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to try that as a podcasting trick. We'll just have some Granny Smiths available and munch on those before we hop on.
I also saw the video where his dog was afraid of that Maul voice. So
yes. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Little sweetie.
Right. So so that's where I stand on that. Elsewhere, we were talking about the Han Solo at Galaxy's Edge video that was on social media. Well, now they have one for Leia. And I remember when they announced that they were going to switch the timeline for that portion of Galaxy's Edge to the original trilogy. So that area around the Falcon and Oga's Cantina and the like, that they came up with this look for Leia. And honestly, if you hadn't told me that it was kind of a amalgamation of different things, I just would have assumed it was, just the Hoth outfit, just slightly updated. But it looks like Leia. Yeah, looked good to me. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't know. I don't know that she hits as well for me as the Han Solo character does. There's just something about the way she looks, but I mean, she definitely portrays Leia. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to take away from the person that they chose or anything like that, but I think she was a good choice. But I don't know, there's just something about, like you said, the amalgamation of her costume, and maybe that's purposeful. So that way it doesn't necessarily fit into one specific OT time frame, and it just gives you the vibe of Leia without being uber specific.
Well, I'm glad that they went with a costume that wasn't her A New Hope gown or the one that she was dressed from The Empire Strikes Back from Cloud City. This outfit makes more sense in Galaxy's Edge, and so I'm glad they went that route.
A little more utilitarian.
Yeah. The thing is that it would be fun to go. I mean, there's been a lot of images of Ahsoka there recently, and the Mandalorians wandering around, and they're still showing off the fact that Rey will still be there in the sequel trilogy area over by Rise of the Resistance, and that's great and stuff. But with what I found with those original trilogy characters, they have that 70s and 80s hair that I think is kind of getting in the way a little bit of the costumes ultimately, because they're all clearly wearing
hair.
they're wearing these wigs to pull it off.
Right, exactly. And maybe that's what it is that takes me out of it a little bit. I don't know.
Right. And honestly, how many people can you find that look like Harrison Ford, that have the right portions, proportionally sized and stuff like that? And they're such iconic roles that there's really no one that's going to be perfect as Leia, Han, and Luke there. But that still doesn't mean that they wouldn't be fun to do. I mean, you get a little bit more leeway with Ahsoka and Hera because they're orange and green. And so, you get a lot of makeup you can hide the person under. And Chewbacca, of course, is a whole, furry beast of a costume. So anyway. All right. Well, we got time for one last thing. And last week in our news, we're talking about the announcement of Celebration tickets going on sale on May 6th. I've got my calendar blocked off for that, and I'm ready to go. And I know you do as well. And so real quick, give me a guess as to something we're going to see there. And I don't mean the obvious, which is we're going to be celebrating 50 years of A New Hope, and we're going to probably have a panel on Starfire since it's coming out a month and a half later, almost 2 months later. But what's something else that you think we're going to see at Star Wars Celebration next year?
Well, I think one of the things that we're definitely going to see is some sort of 50th anniversary anthology panel that celebrates what we have had so far up to this point, and then also looking at the future of the storytelling as well, and where that might actually take us in the future. So just some sort of Lucasfilm panel with Dave Filoni and the like that is, and Lin-Win Brennan, perhaps, that'll talk about that kind of stuff and just where they think creatively they'll be going from here on out. Because obviously Star Wars has been at this for a very, very long time, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, which started it all. So it would just make sense to have some sort of a legacy panel, I think, that can celebrate that.
Yeah. I think that's a good time as any for any, because, they'll definitely have a panel on A New Hope for its 50th anniversary, just like they did in 2017 in Orlando for the 4th anniversary of A New Hope. I'm kind of hoping that they don't go into too much details about what they expect to be coming out, unless there's a movie ready to go before the cameras that's ready to go in production, simply because I don't need any more New Jedi Order situations, Dawn of the Jedi type of situations. All these movies that they said are in production that never actually went into production. So I think the way that they handled Starfighter was exactly right. We've got the script. We're going to start filming it this fall. Oh, and here's our star, Ryan Gosling. So that's what I want to see is here's the movie that we're about to start producing this fall. And here's your cast. And we're not going to tell you who they're playing, but they're going to be in the movie.
Oh, yeah. And of course, other panels like that, if they wanted to do an Ahsoka panel, or if they wanted to do like a Mando and Grogu panel kind of thing, or just a Mando-verse in general kind of thing, that would be fantastic as well. And then, And then I think, too, we're going to see possibly a new book publishing initiative. At least I'd like to see where they go now that the High Republic has been wrapped up. So either a brand new publishing era or some kind of a time jump within, one of the initiatives that we've had, maybe a spotlight book or two on some different things that we've gotten, maybe some more Maul, maybe some more Mando, a Starfighter book, to go along with that one, or even some sort of a, crossover kind of thing with comics. And that would be great too.
We need something.
Yeah.
And because this year just seems so quiet book-wise. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss the Star Wars Outlaw tie-in that Mike Chen wrote, Low Red Moon. But that came out. We're waiting for, what is the next book? Is it the one about Rey and Leia coming out this summer? And
there's that one, and then there's the romance book that's going to be hitting shelves as well.
Yay. Okay.
I knew you loved that one, Dennis. That's why I brought it up.
And then later this year, we've got the follow-up to Alexander Freed's book about
Mask of Fear. Yeah.
Ooh,
so excited for that one too.
Rebecca Roanhorse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, writing that one. But when we had the High Republic, we were getting like 2 or 3 adult novels in that, and 2 or 3 young adults, and some middle grades, and a bunch of comics and other stuff along the way. So it's just that
always something. Yep.
Yeah, every year it just seemed like there was a lot more going on with publishing. So
like see them kind of in a dry era right now.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right on that prediction. So okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and wrap up the news there. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust. And we hope you've enjoyed our take on what's going on with the Mandalorian and Grogu, and you're as excited as we are for that movie to come out next month. And if you've enjoyed the discussion, we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't done so already, we're available on pretty much all the platforms. And we'd also appreciate your ratings and reviews wherever you can leave those. If you want to find more shows from the podcast back catalog, head over to retrozapp.com. All previous 1,025 episodes are there. as well as the other shows that are currently on the network. Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Of course. So we are very easily and conveniently found at Podcast Stardust on all of your socials, including Facebook and Instagram. And we are also on Pinterest. So if you'd like to hit us up for some fun ideas for everything Star Wars, you can head over there. And then our 2 YouTube outlets, which include both the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So you can subscribe to both of those and share those out. And those do support some reactions and comments as well. So we'd love to hear what you think about these news stories, and if you have any predictions for Celebration for next year. And if you need a refresh on your Podcast Stardust merch, or you want to just spruce up your wardrobe, you can head over to our TeePublic store. The link to that is in our show notes, and you've got 7 different show logo designs to pick from. So all kinds of fun things, and thanks in advance if you do pick anything up, because every purchase does help to support the show.
All right. What do you got going on in cosplay?
All right. Well, I'm kind of debating if I do end up getting to do anything for the premiere of The Mandalorian, if I'll actually dress in my original concept Mandalorian. But you can check that out, as well as some other things I've got going on over on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. Definitely have some May the 4th-ish kind of things going on. So you can check out where I will be and what I will be up to. I will be Ahsoka, as well as some other things I've got going on as well. And so yeah, join me for all the fun. j.snipscosplay.
All right, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we've been teasing this, and we are going to have Alan Voivod back to discuss his book, Hyperspacing Hope. It's a fun discussion, so make sure you come back for that. And then on Friday, our coverage of Maul Shadow Lord continues with a breakdown of episodes, or chapters, as I like to call them, 7 and 8 from the series. So thanks for listening to episode 1026 of Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great week. Until next time, may the Force be with you.